Well, I appreciate that. I think that's cool. I do enjoy the list building stage, which is like the game before the game, right? And there's a lot that goes into it, and I'd like to run some weird stuff. At some point, we'll talk about the current weird shenanigans that I'm running. But yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. This will be a lot of fun. So step one for me, and this is going to be a kind of a cop out, but I do have to like the models. So if we're gonna take like I'm obviously a huge chaos fan, and I love all my chaos stuff. So if you take that out of it and you're just going off of hey, we want to take the best stuff, I do think you need to figure out a game plan first of all, especially in ninth edition with like what you're trying to do with your army, like which what kind of a game are you trying to play? Are you trying to grab the board and have this board control? Are you trying to like table your opponent as fast as possible? There's a lot that goes into that first decision, like what type of game do you want to play, right? No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. If you, especially with what I said, I like to start where I said, but if you avoid the mission, you'll show up with like the coolest army ever, and you'll score no points. You'll like, oh, I could do this, and this, and score 18 points on the primary and lose. Right? You're like, oh, that's not what we're doing for ninth edition. Each edition changes. So this is a definitely they've done a really good job at making you, yeah, for sure, take a step back, look at what you're trying to accomplish with the missions, and then start building from there. So yeah, for sure. And yeah, certain armies and certain factions obviously have it better off than others, where they have maybe easier ways to scramble, right? Or easier while we stand, we fight, units. Some armies, it's a little more difficult, but you definitely should take a look before in the list building stages and say, can you do engage in all fronts? Do you have an army that can move around into different table quarters? And you can build towards that. Or, like we said, while we stand, or some of the easier ones. If your army can build around it, I 100% would definitely start there. And that just makes it one less time consuming when you get to a table. You already have two secondaries kind of in your head, and you only have to focus on finding the best third, objective that you're trying to accomplish. Exactly. It's So the standing around portion, especially in ninth, it's got to be heftier than it has probably ever been. You do need assets, and we talk about trading all the time. So I do think it's important that you have a quantity of units where you can throw out cheap assets to play the mission early on, and then the majority of your list can come out turn three, turn four, and finish the game on turn five. So I do think that I don't know a specific number, but at least half your army should be probably just crap, right? That you're, fill that could be cheap troops or fast cheap units. You play in Jakari have your whole army fits into this role, and everything's fast and cheap. Yeah, Absolutely. I think I typically do the same. I actually am a calculator guy, which is so funny. So before I go into Battlescribe, because I'm OCD, like it has to be perfect in Battlescribe when I get to that stage. I I have all of the units. I'm right now. I play several factions, and I don't know why. I know all the points off the top of my head because that's we're addicted to this game. And I will literally sit down and start just hitting into a calculator all the units, and I start with, I'll give you an example. My chaos list typically start with the Iron Warriors section of the list. So I throw in obliterators. I throw in the cultist screen that makes them untargetable. I throw the support characters that they need. And then I'm like, all right, what else do I need to support this army and make this all work, right? And then we talk about, then I start putting in the filler units, all the fast objective secured stuff. And then once you kind of look at all the units and you have it written down or in your head, I start putting them into detachments and figuring out the specifics of the list. It's a good question. Everyone should ask this question. Yeah, legal being a key point, but yeah, I think that's a good way to start building lists. Is a battalion's probably pretty safe. Um, for me, if there's like a cool trick that you like are reading all the rules and stuff, sometimes I build around the trick too, right? So if there's like you have the liquefier, if you like the liquefier trick in the Jakarian Codex, you could basically say, well, how many liquefier boats do you want? And like you could start with putting that as many as you feel comfortable with in the list and then filling out the detachment around them, right? Or filling out your list around whatever trick you're trying to do. Again, I like the obliterators. Shikari have lots of tricks, so it's a much harder decision for you all, kind of what you're doing. I think you sound great. Yeah. Oh, you're doing fantastic. I think your
Um,
questions have been great. Even if no one's heard your questions, I want you to know they've been great.
I-
If they can hear me, I just look like a crazy person talking to myself.
no, so I've been told they can hear you.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. Hello,
right.
everyone. Hopefully, we're playing a game where they have to guess the question that I'm answering.
Which is really the best game. That's
It is a good game. I mean,
yeah. In fact, do you know what? I think that might be the next video. Is that
that's it.
I'm
What
not even gonna,
questions?
yeah, I'm not even gonna be here. I'm gonna ask Austin a random set of questions,
Yes.
and then the viewers have to tell me what question I asked. Do you know what? I think that's a lot of fun. Um,
It is.
it's kind of like
I think we're on to something here.
yeah, it's like backward Jeopardy, right?
Well, let me know when you think if
All right.
someone lets you know
Yep.
if they can hear you.
Ed let me know that he can hear me now, so we should be good to go.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
We're back.
And David Penfold also told me he can hear me now. So, we're doing well. All right.
We're
So,
back. We're doing it.
yeah, back to list building. And so, when you're looking at a trick and you really want to get it in your list, right? So, you've read your codex at this point. You're looking at you, and you're like, man, this trick looks cool. At what point do you sacrifice other things for your trick?
So that really gets probably to the second step, which is the playtesting. So like once you get a list down and you figure out and you like it, you do need to put reps in with it to decide have you gone too far. It's
Yeah.
the only way to know is to play.
Yeah.
So like it might look good on paper, you might feel like you have enough, troops or enough, MSU units to play the
Right.
game, and then you're not going to know until round 3, 4, and 5 of an event like I don't have enough crap. I went too far into trying to make this one trick work.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing for everybody is just we got to play games. So it's just hard for a lot of people. So those people, if you don't have time, to put in the reps, then it is safer maybe to take an all-comers list that just is kind of plays everybody. But if you're trying to go all in on a trick, you do need to put in the reps to make sure that you're not sacrificing in other places.
And I would say if you're doing a, if this is your first tournament or your fifth tournament, or tournaments aren't something that's like your bread and butter where you're really hitting them often, I would say all-comers lists is the place to be. And the way I generally build all-comers lists is I like to have, because I play Eldari, it kind of always falls to this structure, right? I have a couple units in the back that shoot hard. So, Night Spinners, Fire Prisms, Ravagers. Then I have like this slower mid-tier level, right? What used to be the Grotesques, the Talos, these kind of like more durable but very slow units that are just going to slowly march up the board for me. And then I have a turn one kind of like, this is what you should be afraid of and what I expect to lose on turn one. They're easier to kill, but they're going to be in your face very quickly. Which for a while was like Harlequin Bikers or Shining Spears or something like that. And that's kind of how I structured it. Quite fast. The faster the better. For that list, at least. And then actually the way it was kind of built out is that I would have 500 points of like my speed, 500 points of my backline shooting, or a little more, and then the rest of that army was that kind of like objective holding, marching down the field kind of models.
Yeah, I think that's as balanced as you can get it, and that's a good way to think about making an all-comers list, is having basically tiered sections of your list that all operate almost independently. They all have a mission. These guys are doing this, these guys are doing this, and that's good. That's probably maybe simpler than some complex lists, right, that have some crazy stuff going on. That is pretty cut and dry. Hey, your tanks, your artillery acts like it's artillery. Your bikes act like they're bikes. And that's a good way to think about it.
So I know that people sometimes see lists floating around either on Facebook or in the ether, and then they try to use those lists, and maybe don't have the success that maybe they would have had with a homebrewed list. Has that been your experience, or?
So me personally, I'm pretty much the home brewer. Like I like to make some wild stuff, and we all have the same codex. So some people's lists kind of gravitate towards what's good. So you can. I don't think anyone's ever looked at me, and hopefully they're not like, oh, you're playing so and so's list.
Right.
But there's some lists are pretty similar. But you bring up a good point. In the peak of 8th edition, when like the Brothers was a thing, I'm playing Magnus and Morty all the time, and if you think you can just pick up the Brothers and be as successful as some of us are with it, you're gonna fail at it until you pick up the nuances of some of those lists.
Right.
So the more traditional, like you described, maybe I wouldn't call it cookie cutter, but a balanced list that has, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on. Yeah, that is something you can pick up, and people probably will be more successful playing those type of lists. But if you're picking up, some fine-tuned wild stuff from the internet, you do need to figure out and learn what's going on with some of these more nuanced lists.
So when I was first starting, I'll be honest, I did a little bit of like list grabbing, right? But at this point, I actually put some effort in to try to avoid seeing too much of other people's lists, because when I add a unit to my army, in my head it has a job and it fills a role, right? If you're just being told, hey, put this in your army because it's good, maybe you don't grasp that role or that, like you said, nuance of what that unit's doing there, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, don't take it because Joe Blow told you to, right? Yeah, you need to understand why people are taking it, and then you can throw it in your list and have use it to its fullest extent. And like I use a blitz all the time, and they are pretty bad if you don't use them right. I want everybody to know that. Just so everyone knows, if
Right.
you invest and you know what you're doing, like they're the dumbest unit in the game, in my opinion. But they're hard to use. They take a lot of assets, and that's exactly a good example of it. Right? Is some units you got to know what you're doing before you add them into that list.
Right. It's kind of like how shining spears can be incredibly resilient until you charge them into something that doesn't die.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, if you bounce with shining spears, they don't like being in combat.
No, they don't. They hit very, very hard.
Yeah, but don't let them bounce.
Don't. No. Put as many CP as you need to make sure that it kills whatever it hits, and then stay away from the armor rust.
Yes, that's true. A lot of fight last out there these days.
There is, and it seems like it's expanding every codex, right?
Everyone's got some sprinkled in there.
And so when I read, speaking of fight last, when I read the new Vexter mask, I was so disappointed, right? I was like, this is such a little nerf on the Vexter. And then I read, like, the Incubi rule and the Archon rule, and I was like okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I spoke too soon.
Right. I can live with this.
Yes.
So Kurt Phillips says the best strategy is just spam as many mortal wounds as possible.
Now I played Kurt at last Maryland event, and I'm running triple decimators that have exploding 6s to hit, exploding 6s to wound, and I was pumping out 40 mortal wounds to his Harlequin, and which is hilarious. Love you, Kurt.
It is. That's that hurts my soul inside.
Oh,
that many mortal wounds, because I mean, even with like boys, you're gonna just run up and just mortal wound.
Interesting part. So, well, I'll go back to that. I'm running decimators. I've since switched off of them because of the way the terrain works at Maryland, where we're going. The way some of these lists work, I actually can't fight Drakari with what I was taking. But I started building that list because I love that you can have so many mortal wounds. Yeah. Like that was the trick, right? I was like, okay, new Forge World decimators can do. They actually get access to like the exploding to wound now because they have to roll to wound. They used to only do mortal wounds on hits, so that actually raised they thought they made them worse. They raised the ceiling on actually how much they could do, and so I built a list completely around the decimator trick, and that's where like that list started.
Can we stop exploding? Can we stop having exploding things, please? All right.
Dude, it is true. I mean, that probably, obviously, us older codexes, you all could piss off. We're going to keep on. When we get a new codex with all the cool stuff, I'm down. I'll give up my exploding 6s. I'm okay with it.
Because,
but for now, we need some cool stuff to stay in the game.
I swear, every time someone tells me they have exploding 6s, and then I interact with that unit in any way, they roll the dice and they end up with more than they started with.
Yeah, especially AdMech. There's something about them AdMechs. Yeah, there's something about them AdMech. They have the volume before they don't even need to explode.
Right.
But they do.
They're like, oh, well, I have 8 shots. Let me roll that real quick. All right, I'm going to reroll ones. All right, so I have 16 hits.
Like, what just happened? I blacked out. Yeah.
All right, so if someone came to you, right, and they said, all right, Austin, I'm building my very first list, and let's say it's a chaos list because I know you have a depth of knowledge of chaos. I know you know the other codexes quite well as well, but where would you point them? How would you be like, hey, this is a good place to start?
So, I would start them with mono, which is funny. So you have to learn like the sub factions in a list. So Death Guard are in a great spot. You could we could start with a brand new codex. We would build basically a Death Guard army. If they want to run Chaos Space Marines, I'd walk them down the path, and we would pick a legion. Right, we would find out what tricks in a legion that they like the best, and I will break. I mean, I think all the legions are fantastic if you build around them, but some obviously more competitive than others. But you also need to talk to people and figure out, like, what are you trying to win a tournament, or are you trying to have fun
Right.
and be competitive with your friends. Like you don't have to win every
Right.
game every Wednesday, but like you're trying to win. I think that's the first conversation. Once you get really comfortable with a list and with like a sub faction, then you start like, all right, how can I make this dumb?
Right.
Who can I ally with, right?
Right.
Or right, we have, Death Guard are great mono, but let me tell you, Death Guard are better if they take friends. I'm telling
Yeah.
you. So
Well,
it's
I mean-
interesting. The list gets more complicated the more comfortable you get with a faction.
yeah, I mean, Morty by himself is fantastic, right? But I was talking with someone and they were like, Morty is always better with soup. Always.
Me. I don't know. Maybe they talk to me. Morty, he serves a purpose, but his purpose is incredible when he, has access to learning Death Hex and has warp time, and he's he's talking to you turn one. Like it's a whole different type of Mortarion.
So Kurt wants to know, at what stage of the list making process do you start drinking?
Me personally, I'm such a tryhard. I don't drink when I when I drink. I drink when I'm playing with the list, but not when I'm building the list, Kurt. I stay with a clear mind.
So for me, it's when I'm 1 point over, and I've looked at the list for like the last half an hour, and there's like everything is just minned.
That's so funny you say that. So the 1 point is the thing I actually do. That's a little better for me. When I'm 5 points under, my head will explode. I'm a 2,000 point on the dot guy.
Right.
So just y'all will always go back in time and look at every list Austin's ever played with. If I'm at 1999 at the bottom of BCP, it says 1 summoning point, and I have in air quotes, I'm summoning nothing, just so it says 2K.
Just so it says 2,000.
I have to get to 2K. So
no. So yeah. So it drives. So Archon, right? And before this new codex cost like 76 points. Right.
Yeah, and he was tweakable, right? His weapons were all a couple different points.
Yeah, just a little bit. But like I think the normal one I ran was 76 points, and that 1/6 in the list.
3 off.
Threw the whole thing off.
Oh, terrible.
I'd be like,
poor Archon.
Yeah, in my head, I'm like mathing it out, and math is one of my subjects. So I'm always like, yeah, that should add up. That's like 2,000 on a dot, and it's always 2001.
Always. I'm like, yeah, 1 point over is tough. Yeah, especially like you said, you obviously have some PTSD from the Archon being 76 points.
So. Let's move over to like the really good lists, right? The lists that guys go and they win GTs, they win majors, and they keep the list and continue to run it. What makes a list like that, let's say, better than, let's say, the all-comer list?
Well, I'm going to start by saying I do believe that the player matters. So the guys that are running these lists are fantastic. If you're putting in the reps, I think some of these guys could win with lesser lists, but they're also so good at the list building stage that we're talking about that's where we get these lists from. Is they have cut all the fat out and they know exactly what their game plan is to the T, right? And to the matchup, which is so important. Like every game's different. When you're running into Necrons, it's different than running into, Space Marines, right? So they have the tweaks. They tweak their list so that they feel like they have the shot to win the event.
Right.
That means what's the flavor of the month? I'm telling you, if they're going to an event and Drakari is, the king of the hill, your list has to be able to beat Drakari to win the event. So if you go back a couple months, if it was White Scars, then you have to beat White Scars. The lists alter to beat the King of the Hill, and that's what these top tier lists are doing, and that's what it takes. Is you have to be able to tweak, and that's like probably a 300 level course in college, right? Of hey, we got the idea of the list, we've figured out the detachment, we know how to play it, but like the taking like the 100 points
Right.
and playing with it to make it more optimized to beat certain factions that's the secret tech and the secret sauce, right?
Yeah, so I know that. So when I go to a tournament, and I generally have an all comers list, and I go in and I find one army or I find one list that just stomps me, right? And I hate those games, right? I love good, nice, tight games where we're fighting for it every game, but those stomp games, I have to look at my list and I go, okay, I have to deconstruct, what just happened.
Now, it is important to know the difference between are you running into like a meta list, like it's a typical list, or I'm telling you, if you play me at a tournament, like ain't no one running what I'm running.
Right.
So I'm kind of a gatekeeper, right? And that's what people talk about is I've got some weird one-off stuff that you've never thought of. So like when you run into this weird smorgasbord of chaos, your game plan, you may not know what to do. And so that it is interesting. Like if you do just get unlucky and run into some of these weird lists, you are going to have a hard time because there are some cool stuff out there.
Well, so
that's not in the meta, right?
So the last one that really got my goat, the last list that I was like, all right, I think I have to go buy some Harlequins, was the Iron Hands list, and I know you know which one I'm talking about. The when Iron Hands came out and they were just dominant.
they didn't have a Leviathan. It was the Leviathan, and they cloned him 300 times in Vegas.
Yeah. Yes. So when that happened, I was like, okay, this has to change, because so before that I was running up against I was like, okay, we got Space Marines. I can kill Space Marines. Yeah, whatever. Ravager, pew pew. And then I hit that, and I was
they weren't Space Marines. They were like super soldier Space Marines.
They were super soldier Space Marines. It was painful.
Yes.
So what was the last list that did that to you?
So the last list it was this last weekend. I was playing that I can't beat that Drakari list.
No.
Couldn't do it. I've since changed. I still not a given. I'm not going to just beat every Drakari player, but I'm playing the same game they are now.
Right.
I changed my list drastically so that I don't get that feeling. So not quite broken, but like the Drakari lists, they are not all the same, but like they're all pretty much the same, where they're a bunch of boats filled with stuff, and they have a bunch of characters that kill whatever they touch. Like I just described it to you.
Yeah, and I think Drakari has one of the things I actually really like about Drakari is I actually think you can play Drakari in a lot of different ways using the same models.
So this is what's so cool, and I was glad you brought this up, is I hope, and if they do a points adjustment for Raiders and stuff in the future, great. Drakari have 72 lists you could build out of that book. We're only seeing maybe 10% of the codex because that's what's optimized.
Right.
But yeah, if they tweak it, dude, yeah, I think you nailed it. That's a really in-depth, really good book, and hopefully that will make us see a more diverse Drakari build, come out of it. So yeah, you nailed that.
One of the things I actually think would be really cool, and I've had this idea on like, well, this is how GW could fix everything, right? Because I think we all have those thoughts every now and then. Is if they were to do really, really slow point changes. So they look at what's dominating the meta, and they just tack on one or two to whatever's dominating the meta lists. And then they give it another month. And they tack on another one or two if those items are still there. Or even just reduce the cost of the items that aren't being taken.
So I think you're doing like a slow bleed effect, and they're like, how many points every week do we up these until people stop taking them? Right. And then you found like, all right, we went too far.
Yeah.
The surveys would help. You could just ask the playtesters because we know. So there's a lot of solutions. That would be a really cool one. I think that's probably too much work, and they'll never do it. It's probably why they'll never do
a pipe dream.
Every week update. It is a pipe dream.
It's a pipe dream.
If we get a decade from now, if they're making billions of dollars and they're making movies and video games and all sorts of stuff, then maybe they could afford to pay the dudes to do the weekly update. Other game systems do it,
Right.
you know.
So,
But yeah, that would be great.
So did you see Anthony Birdsong's Orc list?
I did with the Stampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. One, we love him.
He's phenomenal. He's
an awesome dude. I mean, he's so cool, and he's got some of the best painted models on Earth, and this is one of them. The Stampa list is amazing.
So, I mean, I'm sure he playtested that list before it came, but as far as I know, there was no, oh, this is really, really good, and it's going to do well at a tournament.
So that dude is probably more busy than most people with life, like everything he's got going on. So I know he's got a circle of players and friends. I'm sure he's got the models. They said, you should run this. It's really fun. This is how it works. And he said, awesome. I would almost guarantee he didn't play test that until he showed up. And he did great with it because it is a cool list. And he knows what it's doing. He knows what's going on.
Yeah. So I actually played him, and it was really interesting how he played me with that list versus maybe how he would have played someone else. So, I mean, he had 90 boys that sat in his deployment zone for 4 turns.
Bold move.
Like, they just sat there.
Yeah, didn't move. No. We're going to chill here.
Yeah, they were like, no, we don't
this is my house. We have this objective.
Yeah. Essentially what he said is, I'm looking at your Drukhari, and you can't kill my Stampa. So
that's true.
It's just gonna run around and kill all your things.
Oh, and that it can do. It'll probably kill 3 or 4 things a turn.
Yeah, it will. It will. It'll make you cry.
Lists like that. That's a gatekeeper. Like you actually, when you're thinking about constructing a competitive list, and you're like taking on all comers, and you're tweaking your list to fight your Kari, like you didn't think about the Stampa list.
Right. Well, how come you didn't think about the Stampa?
Bro, if you run into like a weird list like that, is where you can run into some problems. And we talk about it all the time when, tournament prepping. Sometimes you just you can't plan to beat all 300 people at the event. So it's just impossible.
I will say, I think a very important thing that should be built into every list you play, tournament-wise, is the ability to consistently drop a knight in 1 turn.
No, I agree. I mean, I think a list should basically be able to do that. I agree. Right. You should
it should have the damage output against T8.
Yeah, but if you can't, this is worth noting. If you can't crack like the Dark Angels Terminators, if you can't crack like the Death Shrouds in a list, you have to have a second. You have to have a plan to ignore them. Like your list needs to be able to play its own mission. You're playing your own game. Drukhari, right? If you don't need to go in there, you're playing your own game. You're like, I'm engaging, I'm dominating, I'm doing this, I'm raising banners. I don't care about you. Stay away from me. I'm going to win this way.
In fact, so when I built this list for a tournament, right, the one I'm playing right now, when I was building it, I was like, how can I build a list that scores as many points as possible without interacting with my opponent at all?
Yeah, and that's a good, as a competitive player, that's like a really good thing. And it's always a backup plan for me. Now, some people, if you watch like Nick Nonavetti play, that may be plan A for Nick when he's building a list. If it's 50-50, charge everything turn 1 to win, or sit around and do nothing. Austin's always going in, right?
All right. Charge everything turn 1 is, if I can reach you and I can do it, it's so much more fun.
Yeah, you watch Sean Naden play. If it's the same thing, Sean's the same way. If there's a chance to table you turn 1, Sean's gonna do it. He ain't sitting in the back. He's coming after you, and he's moving 2 boats. He's firing fading both boats with his Yunari shenanigans, and he's flaming everything, and he's shooting everything with Dark Reapers. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So that pulls me back to a game where I was playing against this last ATC, the last one that actually happened. Right.
Many years ago now.
Many years ago.
I want you to know, while you bring that up, I'm still a reigning captain.
Reigning ATC captain of
Hilarious.
Well, so one of the things that I'm planning on doing in the future is having Jeremy Knox on.
Awesome.
And as
Love
far
it.
as I know, Jeremy is still the 3 years in a row reigning Nova champion. Because he won the last
Yeah.
Nova, didn't he?
I don't think he won.
No?
He made top
Okay.
top 8 though. He beat my ass. I know that on stream. He did so well. I believe it's been so long now. The
It
last
has. It's been
Nova.
years.
No, it was. This is. I always remember this. Richard Siegler came with
Okay.
his Tau. He was a last second. He wasn't even supposed to come to Nova, and he came and won with his Tau.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe. Still.
But Knox, he was a top 8er,
Yes,
and
top
he was
eight.
fantastic guest.
He is. He is. So he's going to be on here at some point.
Absolutely.
So, but what you reminded me of with the charge thing is, so at that last ATC, I was playing pure Drukhari, and I had like 6 Talos in my list, and I went up against Tau, and I said, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's just
I can make this charge.
I can make this charge, right? So we were doing the table quarters with a real small circle in the center.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, it's going to be like it'll be between a 9 and an 11, depending on what I kill in the shooting phase. We're going for it. And we made the charge.
It's
We
the best.
ate the
The best
Overwatch,
feeling.
made the charge. It is. There's nothing
It
better
is.
than the
No.
dice just happen to fall
Is
your way.
it the smartest thing? No, but I'm not the smartest guy. I'm gonna do. I do like to have fun. I'm glad that you do too. So
Yeah.
you got to have the ability to do both. Like I will always remember same thing in the list building when I was playing Mortarion and Chaos Knights at Pro Tabletop. Everyone thought I'm Warp Time and Morty. I'm bringing
Yep.
knights in your face. But as Plan B, I could not come.
Right.
I could just not come. So it's always worth in
Yeah.
your list building stage. You have the ability to play 2 different games, right?
I can just stand behind this building
And do nothing.
and wait.
And yeah, I'll wait. I'll wait you out.
So no, I can't remember who I was playing. There was a doubles tournament. I'm not sure who it was, but there was Mortarion and Magnus and another big boy on the table, and they just sat. They sat and waited. I don't think it was you. It might have been, but
We may have played in one of the Richmond doubles?
yeah,
events.
that's what I was thinking.
It was me.
It was you. I was thinking
It
it
was
was
me.
you, but I couldn't I couldn't be 100%, right?
I think we were in like a fire station playing or something.
Uh,
At the last doubles event, I don't remember. It's been
I don't know.
so many years now. I
so
don't know.
it was Larry and I, and he was running Nids, and I was running Harlequins.
Nids and Harleys.
Nids
Yeah.
and Harleys. It was a lot of fun.
Love it.
That was actually a really fun army to play together. And double events are so much fun. Speaking of double events, when you get the opportunity to go to a doubles event, how do you build your list, and what do you look for in a partner?
So, partner's got to be a friend. I don't even care if you're good. It doesn't matter. If you feel like if you want to give me the reins and like you move the models and make some decisions with me, that's the perfect. Like you don't always want 2 alpha males sitting next to each other and
Right.
trying to make all the decisions. So it is worth make sure you're compatible with your buddy.
Yeah.
And you guys actually like hanging out together.
Yeah.
Is definitely step 1 for like picking. And then list is actually interesting. You need to look at, is there any weird rules allowed, right?
Right.
So like, how do lists interact together? Are they letting auras overlap? Are
Right.
they sharing command points? All that weird stuff. If they're letting weird stuff go, you can do some weird shit.
Build if
You
they're
can build some wild stuff.
if they're letting weird stuff go, you need to dig deep and find the weirdest, funnest things you can and run them. Because
This is true.
it's a doubles event. It's for fun. That's what doubles events are
Yeah,
for.
who cares? You're telling
mean-
me they're like weird stuff. I remember
Right.
this. I'm like, that dude has 1,000 points of Tau overwatching for Custodes. Right? Because the verbiage worked out. I'm
Right.
like, this is wild.
This
This is wild.
that's
man.
the dream for me.
Yeah,
Like
this
as
is
far
awesome.
as far as fun to play, that's the dream.
Yeah, I agree. Doubles, any team event, we could talk for hours about it.
Oh yeah, there's Yeah, we could. All right, so let's try to get back on topic somehow. Have you looked at the lists for Maryland Open yet? At all?
I have not. I have played a test game today with my buddy Ed, and I know Ed was watching this.
He
So,
was.
hello, Ed. We played some games. He was looking at some lists, but I have not sat down and stared at them. Now, I remember, and I think about 40K on the daily, so I feel like I know what's out there, but I haven't specifically sat down and looked at it. I do know, I guessed on one of my shows that there was going to be 14 Drakari lists, and I think I'm pretty damn close.
Yeah. So I took a couple peeks. I didn't dig too deep, but I took a couple peeks just to see what was going to be out there. And it looks like Manticores are making a big comeback.
Huge. I'm glad. Good. So I want everyone high five. Astra Militarum have the tools to balance the world out, and I'm glad people are taking.
They do. Astra Militarum has them. There were 3 or 4 Tyranid players, which I was really excited for. I'm always excited to see the Xenos on the table. So anytime we can get one of those, Xenos, not Xenos, Tyranids, Orcs, Tau.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys that I always declare don't get enough love. Space Marines takes too much of their love.
Peasant Xenos factions. No, I'm excited. This is going to be fun. Yeah, I'm excited to play a bunch of games. I have a bunch of people there. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Wet, Wild, and Warpy will be streaming the event.
Awesome.
So you'll be able to check that out there. Let's see, what else is going on? Oh, we have a giveaway coming up soon with for Valerian and Alea models that we're getting painted. So that's exciting. What do you have coming up?
I am in the process of commissioning Necrons, so I've got whole Necrons getting painted just to mix it up while I'm waiting on my Bellicor rules. I know he's going to be sweet. Demons are already are actually pretty good in 9th edition, so I think there's going to be some wild, let's call it wet, wild, and warpy crap going on with Bellicor and all the stuff he's going to do. So I'm excited about the future of Chaos.
So we actually have a Bellicor model that we're going to be doing our Bellicor video with, and getting painted up and doing a paint tutorial on Bellicor, because that is such a beautiful model.
It's amazing.
They as a Eldari player, I'm so very, very frustrated with the beauty and plastic of Chaos.
Oh, I'm with you there. I'm getting spoiled at this point, but just know when the Avatar Arcane gets a new model, he's going to be walking down some steps and look like Bellicor. Come on, it's going to be sweet. You know it's coming.
Yeah. I'm super pumped for the Bellicor model. It's going to be awesome. And the Bellicor rules. Anything you want? Yeah. Anything you feel like you need to hit on for list building?
No, dude, this was fun. Hopefully, people got some insight on how to start. Obviously, it's a long and tedious process, especially when. My favorite thing, probably just for fun to talk about before we're done, when you get to the point where you're on the last 20 points of a list, and you sit there for 3 hours and fiddle with stuff, you did it.
The list is done.
The list is done, and that's the most exciting part. You're like, what's the best? Right. Do I do this? Do I take this weapon? Yeah, that's when you know you've made it. The list is there.
The list is there.
You're just having fun at that point and committing mental suicide just for 20 points.
And one of the things that drives me the most insane about list building, right, is when I am over and I have to completely I have to redesign the entire list because it doesn't work unless it had everything that was in there. So all in all, I love list building. It's my favorite part of the game, other than just rolling dice.
I'm with you, man. I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for being here, and we'll definitely have you on again at some point.
Awesome.
So don't forget to check out future Wet, Wild, and Warpy videos. Don't forget to check out... That was a cue for you.
Me, Team Battle Brothers. We've got Hellfire Gaming. Me and Max in Canada got shows on. So, yeah, keep an eye out. Wobbly Modelers, my team here. Paint stuff. Thank you. Lots of shouts out.
So many
Everybody.
things. So many things.
Oh,
He's
so
a
much
busy,
stuff.
busy man. All right. We'll catch y'all next time. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. Hit me up, and I'll see you this weekend.